AEW has just made what many are calling their most important hire ever as they bring in a new vice president of content development. What did this mean for the company moving forward? Why was this person brought in? And why did they leave WWE? As well as what does Eric Bischoff have to say about all this? All that and much more coming up in this video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Okay, so of course, All Elite Wrestling is gearing up for two major events. First, AEW Revolution coming up this weekend, and then we have AEW Big Business, which many are believing to be the time where Mercedes Moné is going to make her AEW debut. And ahead of that, AEW did make a massive announcement that Jennifer Pepperman, a former WWE writer and award-winning, an Emmy award-winning, I should say, former WWE writer, has now joined the company as their vice president of content development and will be working alongside AEW president and CEO Tony Khan in creative and developing content for their weekly show. This is a massive, massive hire. I'm going to read in part from the press release here that AEW put out. It says AEW CEO and head of creative Tony Khan has announced that award-winning director and producer Jennifer Pepperman has joined AEW today as vice president content development. A professional wrestling producer and senior writer since 2017, Pepperman was a prolific director and executive producer for renowned soap operas, including As the World Turns, One Life to Live, and After Forever. So, of course, she's not just someone who has experience with wrestling. She also has experience writing for soap operas, which, you know, if you look at the way wrestling is kind of produced and written for, like, it's a very similar, you know, type of content that you're developing there, you know. And then you take it a step further and you look at the fact that she was in WWE, and it's reported that one of the people that she was closest to in WWE and someone that she a lot of times exclusively wrote stuff for was Mercedes Moné. She just left WWE last month, and now she's joining AEW. Mercedes is just about to come in, so this hire, for a lot of reasons, makes sense. You want to bolster the women's division. You want to begin telling better and bigger stories. And let's be honest, AEW for the past few years has been largely incapable of telling multiple women's stories at the same time. I think bringing in someone like Jennifer is going to do wonders for them there. And of course, you're going to be able to also appease one of the biggest stars that you're bringing in Mercedes Moné. Additionally, because we can't be done there. There's no possible way that we can be done there. Of course, Eric Bischoff, someone who has been very critical of AEW in the past, also chimed in on this week on his podcast, I believe, on Strictly Business. He said the following about this hire, quote, "This is the most exciting thing I've heard out of AEW in the last 3 years, maybe longer. It indicates a couple of things to me. One, Tony recognizes he has a problem. You can't fix a problem or come up with a solution if you don't recognize what's wrong with it first. And the fact that Tony is bringing in people at a high level suggests to me, and part of this is wishful thinking on my part." Does not like Tony Khan. Part of this is wishful thinking on my part, but I do hope I'm right, that Tony is recognizing that his creative, his fantasy wrestling matches and dream matches nonsense and creating wrestling that appeals to the internet it's not working. I've been banging on that drum for 2 years now. I've gotten a lot of hate from it. He went on to say a lot, but he pretty much ends it with saying that they need to happen over a course of an arc. He's talking about stories. Need to happen over a course of an arc and any chance of building and retaining an audience. And that's what Tony has had a hard time doing, building and retaining an audience. He's gone from the premiere of 1.4 million viewers down to averaging 800,000. That's a problem, especially when the overall audience for wrestling is growing because of WWE and their success. Okay. There's quite a bit to unpack there about Eric's comments. We need to also remind everyone that Eric is someone who is not necessarily a fan of AEW's style, AEW's creative, or Tony Khan himself, according to, some of the things that he has said about Tony in the past. But he touches on, I think, a bit of truth. And that is that AEW, while they have a lot of great matches and they've done a lot of dream matches and the wrestling in the ring, there's really no question. In North America, I don't think there's a company that does it better than AEW right now. That's my opinion. But when you look at the overall storytelling, when you look at the continuity, that is something, that is a place where AEW has had trouble doing and maintaining across the board. You know, they have great stories, and they have had great stories. Of course, I always point to the Hangman Adam Page story. That was great. The MJF Adam Cole story, which was divisive for many people, but a large segment of their audience really enjoyed that storytelling. And I thought the least you could say about it, it was continuous, and it did bleed into the next show. So that isn't necessarily the problem, because a lot of times their main arcs are well done. The issue is the side arcs are just not developed out. They linger. People forget about them. Sometimes you believe that the creative team forgets about them. So bringing in Jennifer, I think, can also help with this. She has experience with WWE and you know, maybe delegating some of these tasks and also like making sure that, you know, someone is in charge of taking these side quests and turning them into more continuous stories. I think that's going to help things for sure. And I agree with Eric there. Where I don't agree with Eric as much is where he says, you know, AEW went from 1.4 million viewers down to averaging 800,000, and that's a problem as WWE's overall audience is growing. That is, I mean, I think Eric would even tell you that is not necessarily the most, you know, analytical, and the most analytical description of that he could give. Because you're literally only looking at one rating versus like what they're averaging now. You're not factoring in, you know, the decline over time of television viewers. You know, people point to, you know, Monday Night Raw ratings, and like if you look at quarter to quarter from like Q4 to Q4 last year to Q4 in 2022, AEW and Raw have, you know, at a very similar rate, lost viewers. So it's not one of those things where, you know, oh my God, they're not retaining viewers. They are retaining, you know, their paying audience. Like, AEW's gotten to a point where, like, no matter what, they're going to do 100 to 150 pay-per-view buys every single show that they do. The fact that they're not doing as many viewers as they did on their premiere show means very little, because we're at a different point back in that time. In October of 2019, excuse me, All Elite Wrestling was an interesting new firebrand product that people were interested. You were going to get those curious eyeballs on that product that night. That was always going to happen. And to say that, you know, the fact that cord cutting or, you know, like just the loss of TV viewers over time has not impacted that, it's nuts. AEW is still the number one show on Wednesday nights most of the time. Like, in that time slot, they are 9 out of 10 times the number one show. The past few weeks, they have been. So I think, you know, it is, I think a lot of that is Eric just trying to make sure that, like, you know, he's bolstering his argument, even though I believe it's doing more harm than good to his argument. But because you can say that AEW has a continuity problem with telling their storylines. Like, that's fine. And it's a real thing that they need to work on, and I hope they will work on. But the ratings thing is different. Hopefully the ratings talk in general is going to go away once, you know, the TV deals are signed up, because there's a chance that AEW ends up doing a simulcast on Max or some other streaming service, in which case that would be great, because no one would really care about ratings, except everyone would still complain about them online, wouldn't they? Anyway, AEW's got a new content hire. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. Also, be sure to smash that like button. Thank you all for getting us to 20,000 subscribers here on Real Take Wrestling. Bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you. You guys can go over to my Twitter. We're doing a giveaway, giving away a copy of WWE 2K24, a digital copy, I should say. Instructions, all that are pinned on my X, Twitter, whatever that thing is called. So go check that out. Until next time, though, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.